Welcome, everyone, to the Armed Forces Insurance Military Spouse of the Year show, the place where we get to talk with our MSWs about what it is that they're doing in their community and the differences that they are making. So today we get to talk with one of my favorites. We get to talk with Heba. So welcome to the show, Heba.
Thanks, Megan, so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Can you just take a minute for those who don't know who you are? Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So my name is Heba Abdelaal. I'm an active duty Air Force spouse, currently living in Germany, and we're assigned to Ramstein Air Base. And so, I worked on Capitol Hill for almost 9 years and have, been working on policies and programs through the Department of Defense, the VA, and all sorts of other fun stuff. So I'm just excited to talk to you today about the AFI MSWI program and some of the fun things that I've been getting to do this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what is your MSWI title?
So I am the 2022 Armed Forces Insurance Air Force Spouse of the Year.
Yeah, congratulations for that. And so with that title, what were you nominated for?
So I was actually originally nominated for my work on military spouse employment policies and programs, as well as some of my volunteerism at my local installation, Ramstein Air Base in Germany. That was the bulk of my nomination.
No, that is absolutely amazing to hear. And so with that, we know sometimes passions and advocacy paths, sometimes they change, sometimes life happens and pushes us into different directions. So what are you working on now?
Yeah, thanks for that question. And you're absolutely right. Once I became the branch winner, I really started to learn a lot more from the other branch winners, but also from other installation winners across services about some of the fantastic advocacy work that they're doing, right? And things that they're working on in their local communities. And so the way that's really helped inform, my advocacy and has changed some of my advocacy path is it actually led me to realize that we needed better ways to communicate some of the best practices that other military communities were coming up with to address a whole host of challenges, including military spouse employment, childcare, healthcare, housing issues, right? Transportation issues or PCS issues, as you well know, Megan. So that's kind of how my advocacy has shifted. And so I'd worked on public policy and on policy work for a long time, but I wasn't really sure how that would fit into military spouse life or military life. And then I realized that a lot of that, learning by trial and error and learning how to, communicate and really write out those best practices and share them with senior leaders, I realized that was something that I could really share with our community as a way of giving back, right, to other military spouses and other organizations that are supporting our families and our service members, including the Department of Defense. And so my advocacy has kind of shifted because although I'm still working very closely with organizations like the National Military Spouse Network and Sue Hoppin on military spouse employment issues, I'm also now working with the Department of the Air Force and fellow colleagues and fellow military spouses to stand up something called the Family Life Action Group or the FLAG initiative through the Department of the Air Force that would help give military spouses, military service members, anyone, civilians, right, that are affiliated with the Department of the Air Force, a really clear and open opportunity to communicate either challenges that they're experiencing in their community, but also solutions that they've come up with, the creative solutions that they've come up with to address those challenges there locally at their installations. And really, it's just a means to give visibility to all of our senior leaders and decision makers, right? As to, okay, where are their pain points? Are we seeing specific pain points in certain locations? And what can we do to alleviate those pain points? And maybe that one best practice doesn't work at every single Air Force installation, but maybe it works, right, at a handful of them. And it's an opportunity, right, for those, commanders and leaders to get together and say, okay, what's working, what isn't, how do we change it, what did y'all do over here, what did we do over there, and really helping, again, amplify some of those really creative solution sets that we know families and service members and leadership are coming up with all across the country and really all over the world. So that's been the biggest change in my advocacy is working together with other uniformed members, right? So it's a really unique group. It's about 4 of us that have really started this. We're going live here in February of 2023. We're really excited at the opportunity that this is going to give our military families and all of our Department of Air Force, so air and space, force related families and service members, to have those open and honest conversations with senior leaders and decision makers. And I'm just really excited at what it's going to mean as far as supporting our military.
No, that sounds absolutely phenomenal. And I can't wait to see that be launched and to take off and to see all the good stuff that can come from that. Because one of the things that we've seen in our community is that when we have that open door of conversation between our senior leaders and the families and the service members, just the good things that can come from that and the things that need to be changed that can get changed. And then I have to chuckle a little bit too when you're just like, I did policy and all of that stuff. Like, how does that fit into everything? Like, for me, I see it. It's like the perfect thing, the way your background coming into the military where everything is ran off of policies and regulations and procedures of one way or another thing. And it's just like, it's a perfect fit. So I love seeing how you use your background to kind of, help further other things and help support other folks. So now that we know what it is that you're doing, can you walk us through some of your journey of how you got started in all of this and how it kind of led you to, this is what I need to do?
Yeah, so I was approached, by a handful of uniformed members who were actually working on several other lines of effort, right? EFMP, the Women's Initiative Team through the Department of the Air Force, and if y'all haven't ever heard of that group, you can Google them as well, and I'd encourage you to. But you were seeing all these different efforts and initiatives. Something else that's kind of unique or specific to the Air Force, but I hope that folks have been hearing about too, has been the Fortifying the Force initiative. And it's something that, Chief Bass and Chief Toberman came together to support, again, along with, our senior leaders, to work at getting after some of the mental health challenges that we know our military community is facing. And it became really clear that, look, there are, communities that are really getting after some of these challenges, but there just didn't seem to be a really good way to communicate those kinds of, again, those kinds of approaches or best practices, or, oh my gosh, we tried something here locally and it worked. Maybe it could be scaled, maybe it couldn't. But if it worked for that community, right, or that population set, well, then how do we get them the support that they might need? Maybe they need some financial support. Maybe they need some, policy support, right? They need the rules and regs. They need clarification that, oh, they can use this location on base, right, for this programming or what have you. So like you said, there really is an immense amount of work that we can kind of do at some of the lowest levels possible with open communication and open dialogue across all of the impacted community members. And so the FLAG initiative is really that effort to start to bridge that gap. And once we started having that conversation, I actually came to realize that, something like this already exists for another service branch, and that's the Department of the Army. And so we kind of looked at what, the US Army is doing and said, okay, they've been doing this since 1983. Where can we borrow best practices from a sister service? Where can we bring those into the Department of the Air Force? How do we not reinvent the wheel, but still offer a mechanism and a means for, an impacted community to feel like they have a voice and have a say, right, in the policies and programs that they ultimately have to either utilize or to live by. And we feel really, really strongly, and I personally feel very strongly that all of those programs, policies, initiatives are going to be far more effective and serve our population better when they are informed by those who are impacted. And so having that seat at that table and having that voice is really, really important. And I think you and I talked about this earlier this fall as well. It's immensely important that when given that opportunity to participate in things like surveys or questionnaires and to offer feedback, that people do that, right? Because we can change policies, all day long, with the exception of Murphy's Law, which is like the one law we cannot change. And I will never, I won't take on that effort. But like you've mentioned, quite often to folks, look, we can help offer constructive feedback, right, to our decision makers and our leaders that can then help inform them as to the changes that need to be made. Sometimes those require changes in policy. Sometimes they don't, right? Like sometimes it's just asking the question, oh, well, can we do this? Oh, well, yeah, you can absolutely do that. So I think there are just sometimes we get caught up in the personal experience of advocacy, and we forget that there are actually quite a few things. There's quite a breadth of sometimes authorities and abilities to address certain issues without having to, go to Congress and get legislation passed or getting something passed in an NDAA. So, yeah, that was kind of how all of this came to be, and we've been really lucky that our partners at the Department of the Army have been very gracious about sharing those best practices with us on how they structured their program to provide that two-way communication.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I love hearing that about how you got started. I think it's a good reminder for all of us that there is no set path that you have to take to be able to make a change and make something happen, that everything happens differently for everybody depending on what it is. So with all of that, how has the AFI MSOI community supported you in doing what it is that you're doing?
Well, I just, and it's like hard not to get a little bit emotional about it because you go through military life and yeah, you find your tribe, you find your people, you find your community, you find your friends for life, the other military families that you connect with, and you end up, moving around. And more often than not, unless you're at joint assignments or you're at really large installations like, Ramstein, so to speak, too, you usually don't have as much of an opportunity to connect with military spouses from other services. But, in this instance, through the AFI MSOI program, I've had such a fantastic opportunity to get to know and to meet other military spouses from across all of our service branches. And that's really been, the best gift. And I know that I can pick up the phone and call Monica or Abby or Sarah or Cindy or Sergio or Vinny any day, anytime, sometimes in the middle of the night, because I have, and ask, hey, what do you guys do on this issue? Or what do y'all do in this situation? Or how does your, family childcare process work? Or how does this education thing work over here for the Coast Guard? And I'm so fortunate that they're very generous with their experiences and that information. And so, to me, that's been really the greatest gift that I've gotten from the AFI MSOI community, is that you have a lot of military spouses that have just been unbelievably gracious and generous with their experiences and their information and networks, right? Making introductions to people so I can ask questions. So even if they don't know, right, the answer to the question, they're like, well, but I know someone who does. And then, you initiate the military spouse network process, which, as you all know, the degrees of separation in our community are very slim, which I love. So it's been, it's so tiny. They're so tiny. It's like a single degree of separation. Oh, you want to go talk to this person over here? And all of a sudden, next thing you know, let me send you their email, and connect you. And so, I've been really lucky. And I also would be remiss if I actually didn't share that my nomination came from an Army spouse. So that to me is also really special. They were, her and her husband, our neighbors. They were serving at Fort Carson while we were at Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado Springs. And so it's not lost on me that my nomination actually came from another service branch, and it really does mean a lot. But those become your friends for life for sure.
No, absolutely. And I love hearing that it was a spouse from a different branch that nominated you. And it just goes to show with our community how we can be able to see the effort and the work and the difference that somebody is making for our community, regardless of whatever branch that they are. And then just the whole degrees of separation. I love that you mentioned that. Like the whole Kevin Bacon thing has got nothing on our spouse community. Everybody knows somebody who knows somebody and is always happy to make an introduction or a connection or, whatever it is to kind of help get people where they need to go and get them in the office or to the person they need to talk to be able to ask the questions to make the changes that need to happen for our community. And so I love that you took the time to mention that. So with all of this, we know there are thousands of spouses out there every day making a difference in our community, doing whether it's a small thing or a big thing. But what advice would you give to other spouses who are trying to make those changes?
Well, first I'll say thank you, because ultimately all of their hard work, right, is what is going to affect and impact and support, my family, in the future as we continue our military service, and my spouse as he continues his military service in uniform, right? So I just will say, thank you. Thank you for your persistence. Thank you for the time. Thank you for your effort. Thank you for the interest, right? And the just the courage that it does take to sometimes really take on some of these really long-term, advocacy projects, because they are long-term. So I know that you give, military spouses give a lot of themselves when they take on representing our community in that way. And it's really important. And so I just have to say thank you. As far as advice, just know that you don't ever have to be doing it alone. There are so many of us out there that are working in various different spaces and on different issues, and we're all supporting one another, right, by doing that. And so there's plenty of work to do, and there's plenty of opportunity to plug in and to support each other. We don't have to do it at the expense of one another. And I think that's really the beauty of our community as well, is that we are not only force multipliers for the military members and for the Department of Defense, but we're force multipliers for one another. So the successes that, we can help support and see, regardless of which service branch gets there first, that means, more success, more progress, more opportunities for our military spouses writ large. So that's my biggest advice, is just don't lose sight of the fact that you're never doing this alone. There are a lot of us behind the scenes that are here, ready, standing by to support you in the ways that you need. Don't be afraid to ask for help, and to know that, you don't have to carry the weight of all of those issues on your shoulders. Like I mentioned earlier, if I need to ask a question about food insecurity, I know I can pick up the phone and call Monica Bassett any day of the week, and she is going to help me, right? Whether it's making a connection, getting me information, or just sharing her knowledge with me. So know that you have a lot of other military spouses out there that you can lean on, that you can rely on. And I would just, encourage everyone that's really my biggest advice, is don't forget one another, take care of each other, don't take each other for granted, but know that there are a lot of us that are going to be ready to come alongside you and help support you in whatever it is that you need, whether it's a personal thing or issue that you're trying to address for your families, or it's something bigger because you've taken on a larger interest in advocacy. But we're all there 100% behind you.
No, those are absolutely some perfect words to end this show with. So Heba, thank you for taking time out of your day. Thank you for joining us and sharing your story and what this program is for you.
Thank you, Megan. And thanks for giving so many of our military spouses the opportunity to share their voice and their advocacy and what this program has meant to them. It means a lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And everybody else watching, thank you for joining us today. Make sure you tune in next time as we get to talk with another one of our MSOIs about the work that they are doing in their community and what this program also means to them. Until then, take care of each other.